Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the zodiac sign Virgo and Death. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Now, as far as Virgo goes, well, the general outlook regarding matters pertaining to death, I mean, Virgo can be very worrisome. I mean, they are a mutable sign, but they are the sign that is corresponds with worrying. Virgo can be very anxious about things that are life and death situation, crisis matters that could potentially, they feel that potentially could be perilous now, and also just death in general. That is how a lot of Virgos, I believe, can be. But the thing about them is they're very thoughtful. They can often be very pensive regarding these matters. But the thing about Virgo is, even though a lot of Virgo people may not be, they may not look very strong or vigorous, but they often have a very good constitution and they have the ability to stay healthy. It's a sign associated with health. They are often about nutrition. Many Virgos may work out vigorously. If I'm not mistaken, Lou Ferrigno, who's a prolific bodybuilder, I don't know if he works out that much anymore, but I mean, he was a very famous bodybuilder. He was an actor. He played the Incredible Hulk in the late 70s, early 1980s television series, and he obviously worked out relentlessly. Um, the thing about it, and these are Virgo often will take a lot of precautions in regards in an attempt to avoid passing early. COVID-19 currently going on. They're often the ones that will be wearing the full visor and their mask and doing everything they can, washing their hands persistently, using whatever that hand sanitizer in a lot. But they also see the fact that Virgo is also, I mean, they are about not wanting to be around people that could potentially maybe kill them, getting them involved in negative, corrupt situations. I mean, Virgo will often be the ones to do the background checks on more people than most, because that is how Virgo will often be. They will take a lot of precautions in those matters. In many instances, But the thing about Virgo, what's ironic with them, is that they will may often do what they can to avert death in passing early. They will do what they can often to prolong their life and their longevity. But I've noticed a lot of Virgo people will pass early, like Gemini. And I've talked about this in at least previously in at least one video. And a theory I have is that both signs are ruled by Mercury, and Mercury can be connected with the wind. Patrick Swayze, a Virgo Ascendant, passed away at like 57, somewhere around there. He died well before I think he should have. He had the pancreatic illness, and I believe it was pancreatic cancer, and pancreas is associated with Virgo. You have, and then there was another person, Kurt Cobain, another Virgo rising. Their ascendant degree was very close to each other too. And Kobe Bryant, who was likely a Virgo sun, depending on time of birth. I think he may very well Capricorn rising. That would put his sun at Virgo. I mean, I don't know. And again, that time of birth is still, it's unknown. But I think he likely had a Virgo sun. I'm sorry, Virgo sun, depending on birth time. And he died like around 40, 41 years old, and of course, in that helicopter crash. Now, the thing is, too, is that as far as Virgo physical issues go in debilitations, which of course could, in a lot of cases, can ultimately lead to one's passing, well, it could be something with the spleen, like a ruptured spleen. The spleen corresponds with Virgo. As far as anatomical correspondences go, the spleen is associated with Virgo. The abdomen, abdominal area, perhaps maybe stomach cancer, the pancreas is also associated with Virgo. Virgo may have a greater propensity toward pancreatic cancer than most. Virgo, I think, like I stated before, I think Patrick Swayze died of pancreatic cancer, if I'm not mistaken, but that's something that you have to confirm on the internet through Google searches or what have you, but I think that's how he passed away. Now, Virgo is also connected with the small or upper intestine, so there might be some intestinal issues which could lead to death. And I don't know if that it actually can happen or not. But if the upper intestinal issues, if it can potentially lead to death, then Virgo could be very susceptible to that, more so than most signs, because of the fact that that part of the body does correlate with Virgo. Now, another thing about Virgo too is that they could be prone to the psychosomatic type of illnesses when the worrying and thinking about debilitations may actually exacerbate them. Now, I don't know for sure 100% if psychosomatic illnesses can aggravate conditions or pain that are related to conditions that are life-threatening. But if they are, if it can happen, then Virgo needs to be wary of that. Now, another thing too to look at is the 8th house cusp as far as death in astrology. Now, zodiac sign Aries often falls on the 8th house cusp in a solar natal chart for Virgo. And sadly, I had somebody that had been a friend became an enemy of mine in high school. If I'm not mistaken, he had a Virgo ascendant, and he likely had Aries on the cusp of his 8th house. And if I'm not mistaken, not to be redundant, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I believe he passed away due to a brain tumor. Where an Aries can be associated with like an aneurysm, or maybe I would say the eyes as well. But I don't know if you can actually die from an eye disease if there's a thing called eye cancer and cancer of the eyes. But if there is, they may be susceptible to that. The thing about Aries too is what we have to keep in mind is that the zodiac sign Aries is that it is associated with volatility, gunfire. Now, Virgo is not per se, volatile, violent or turbulent sign, but we have to keep in mind is that Virgo can be one of the signs that are more susceptible to sudden elements or aspects of some tribulation or some adversity of some kind of physical confrontation. The mutable signs are considered the weaker signs because they are mutable. I understand that weakness is very subjective, but what I'm talking about is the vulnerability, susceptibility to sudden crisis situations that are directed at them, and confrontations may be no exception. Now, with Aries on the 8th house cusp, I do believe Virgo can be, this is susceptibility to passing due to gunfire, due to a violent confrontation. The mutable signs are also more susceptible to bullying, being coerced more so than usual. It's interesting because in a solar or natal chart for Virgo, the zodiac sign Leo often falls on the 12th house cusp. I see Leo as being associated with bullying. The 12th house is what can be the unseen, the hidden, the things that could happen to you really perhaps in a flash without you really realizing them, and it could be until the last until it actually happens, and it's certain things could be could be too late. And the thing about it is and those are some things that are associated with Virgo, and in terms of as far as ways they may pass bullying. Leo being on the 12th house could be a secret hidden adversary, but they can come out at some point. They may not realize that it's actually a hidden enemy to them, but those are the people, the bullies, that Virgo has to be wary of as well. Another thing too is that Sagittarius often falls on the 4th house cusp for Virgo in the solar natal charts. The 4th house cusp in astrology is associated with the latter or end part of life. Now, the fact that you have Sagittarius on it, Sagittarius could be associated with the liver. There may be issues with cirrhosis of the liver at the latter or end part of life, maybe hip replacement, something with the sciatic nerve. It could also, at this time, as well for Virgo, on a positive end, It may bring out a lot of Sagittarius qualities and attributes of that latter part of life, such as jocularity, being jovial, philosophical, expansive, more optimistic, upbeat, exuberance. Hold on a moment, people. Anyway, what I want to say is, and the fact is, although it can bring out some negative qualities of Sagittarius as well, such as being overly foolhardy or over optimistic, even recklessness or being overly blunt. Um, these are things, tactless. Those are some things that can actually, come out, the latter or that end part of life, which leads up to death for Virgo. But anyway. Another thing for Virgo too is that Aquarius often falls on the sixth house cusp in a solar natal chart for Virgo. Now, Aquarius can be associated with the circulation. There may be some issues with sluggish circulation that can lead to death for Virgo. Some cases it can be just an unusual, bizarre health-related matter that Virgo may wind up having. It could be death through electrocution. Of course, electrocution can harm the physical. Sixth house is about physical injuries. Electrocution can harm the body, but can also lead to death in some cases. Now, also, what Virgo needs to be wary of with Aquarius on the sixth house cusp is something cancerous on the lower legs. The lower legs do correspond with Aquarius. Osteosarcoma is the example of that. There could also be, again, going to like some bizarre health-related issue, or unusual health-related issue. An example is hemiparesis. I don't know if I'm saying that right. When, for example, half the body is paralyzed. In Virgo, sadly, if it has some kind of condition like this, it might be something, where Virgo wishes they would, pass. Sadly, I'm not trying to sound overly morose or morbid or negative, but I'm just being factual. Because that an example like that would be something I couldn't wish on my worst adversary, but that is just a very isolated example. I knew somebody that had an Aquarius sun at 29 degrees that had that condition where she had half her body paralyzed, and she also had epilepsy and seizures on top of that. I do believe there's a correlation with that anyway. But anyway, let me continue with this as far as Virgo and death now. And another example, also the fact that Aquarius is associated with the nerves. Virgo may be susceptible to issues with the nerves as well. There was something that's connected with as far as nerve-related, something called peripheral neuropathy, where in some cases the nerves could actually, as far as controlling the heart and circulation, may not, might cause something where that issue, peripheral neuropathy, may cause issues with the control of the heart and the heart and circulation, the functionality of it. The nerves that control the heart and circulation functionally may not be, operating right, or what have you, due to this. Cause some, the nerves could cause some issues with the heart and circulation functioning in a way that they need to. And I would say that could be, increase the propensity for passing on, sadly, because you're talking about the heart is obviously a very critical proponent of the body. But last but not least, I'm going to talk about, as far as Virgo, putting things to death figuratively. Well, the thing about this is, what's interesting with Virgo is that being very scrupulous, they're a sign that they can end things very quickly, because the fact is Virgo is often very proper. They don't often want to get involved with people that are unscrupulous, that might be corrupt. They're involved in the underworld somehow. Even if there's any slight suspicion toward this, a Virgo might end a connection as quickly as it begins. Now, another thing about Virgo, conversely, Virgo might worry incessantly about leaving a connection that might be to their detriment in some cases, because of their apprehension and fear that if they leave the connection, say, like, for example, an abusive relationship, that it's going to be more to their detriment by leaving as opposed to staying. For example, that person stalking them, that would be an example. That is so Virgo, it seems like it can go either way. It can be very extreme. I mean, they can either end things on practically before it begins, or they could procrastinate and ending something due to their anxious, their worrying and their apprehension in doing so. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.